Hello, welcome to another Tech Tips video from Solid Solutions Ireland. Today I'm going to be showing you how to create your own Weldment profiles to use in SOLIDWORKS. Every Weldment profile starts off as a sketch of the cross-sectional area that you wish to be your profile. I'd recommend dimensioning up the sketch fully, including any construction lines you may wish to use, and placing the appropriate points around the profile that you may wish to use to locate it. After you've sketched up your profile, you must save it as a library feature part. This is slightly different from a standard SOLIDWORKS part, and I'm going to walk you through how we create them. The first thing you must do is select the sketch before saving. If you do not select the sketch first, the profile will not save out correctly. We'll now go to File, Save As, and the type I'm going to save it as is a library feature part. By default, when you select this file type, SOLIDWORKS will bring you to your design library. I don't want to place my file in here, I want to place it in my Weldments folder. I've created my own custom Weldments folder on the top of my C drive, in this SOLIDWORKS Custom Files folder. This is a folder I created myself that I can place custom materials, templates, weldments, etc. into. I recommend creating one of these folders because if you're using the standard SOLIDWORKS default folders in C program files and C program data, what can happen is when you uninstall SOLIDWORKS, upgrade or modify or install, sometimes these can get deleted. If you change computers, they'll be gone, and it's a very difficult place to save into because it requires administrator permissions to save into these folders. So by saving it in my custom files, it means I have full control over all of my own custom profiles, materials, etc. I've created a Weldments folder in here, and I've created a standard. The folder structure for using Weldments in SOLIDWORKS is a very specific structure. You need to have a Weldments folder. Inside of there, you will have your standards. This will be your ISO or ANSI, and underneath those you will have your type. This will be things like C channel and I-beams, etc. Underneath your type, you will then have all of your various sizes. I'm going to save this into my standard, and I've got a type specified in here as a folder called my flat plate. I wrote not configured after it because I'm going to show you another structure for these files that doesn't involve a type folder. For now, I'm going to go into my flat plate folder, and I'm going to save this file out as a 5x10 flat plate. You can see now, after I've saved it out, my sketch has a little L next to it, meaning that this is now a library feature. The file name up here has a little series of library books next to it, indicating that this is a library feature part. It behaves the same as any other ordinary SOLIDWORKS part, and you can very easily go in and modify your sketch and save the part out. After you've added your files into your SOLIDWORKS Custom Files folder, you need to make sure that SOLIDWORKS can find those files. To do this, you must open up your options, come down to File Locations, and we're going to click the drop down and open up Weldment Profiles. Inside of here you can see I've added C SOLIDWORKS Custom Files Weldments as a location. I can now use this location to bring in any of my Weldments profiles. If I create a new part, I'm just going to create a quick a quick Weldment using my profile. Just going to draw a line, give it a length, and now I'm ready to use it. When I go to add a structural member, my standard can be ANSI inch, ISO, the built-in standards, or I can now see I've got my standard at the bottom. I can select my type as my flat plate, and the size is a 5x10 flat plate. select the Weldment, and it has now used my profile inside of here. If I wish to add additional sizes, what I must do is save out a new file here with a different size on it. I'm going to modify this to be 20mm long, and I'm going to go File, Save As. Comes in as a library feature part, but now I'm going to save it as a 5x20. If I now go back to my other part that I had active, I can go in and modify this Weldment, and you will see my 5x20 flat plate is now available to me. The other method for using Weldment profiles is not to have that type specified inside of here as a folder, but to use configurations. Here you can see I've got my type set up as a folder, my flat plate, and I wrote not configured after it. The reason for this is each different size must live as a unique file. However, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this as a configured file. I'm going to save this out directly underneath my standard, and I'm going to call this my flat plate, and I'm going to write in configured after it. This will indicate to me that it's configured. You don't need to type in the word configured after it. This is just for the purposes of this video. This is now saved as my flat plate configured, and I'm going to go and create some configurations. If I don't create configurations, this will not show up. Just to show you, if I create a part, and I go to use my Weldment profile on it, you can see I only have my flat plate not configured. However, if I switch back and I now configure this, I'm going to have my 5x20 to start with, and I'm going to configure this sketch. I can now add in any additional configurations I wish to have, like my 5x10. I'll add in a 5x30. And let's throw in some intermediate sizes. I'll put in a 5x15 and a 5x25. I can now configure the various dimensions by selecting them up here and typing in my values. 10, 30, 15, and 25. After I've made those modifications, all of these various configurations will now appear as different sizes. Let's test it out. Inside of my part here that I was creating with Weldments, I'm going to add a structural member. And instead of my flat plate not configured, you can see I now have this my flat plate configured. I can choose a size, 5x10, all the way up to my 5x30. And it's that simple to use your own custom profiles inside of Weldments in SOLIDWORKS. Just remember the file structure that's used. You have to have a Weldments folder. Inside of that you have your standards. Here I have my standard. And then you can either have a non-configured folder that contains all the different sizes of that type, or you can have one part file that contains all the different sizes within one part file. The last thing I want to show you today is how you can download some of the profiles from SOLIDWORKS themselves that they've generated under the ISO, ANSI standards, and so on. Very easy to do. You come over here to your design library and you'll see SOLIDWORKS content at the bottom. If you expand this out, you can come down to Weldments. If you press and hold Control on your keyboard and click on the appropriate standard, it'll download all of these standards as a zip file. I'm going to download these directly into my Weldments folder, and I'm going to show you how to set it up to use them. In my Weldments folder, you will see it downloaded iso.zip. If I simply extract this, it's not going to quite work straight away. There's one little problem with the default way Windows extracts items, and that's that it doubles up on the folders. You can see here I've got ISO, and if I go into that folder I have ISO again. If I use this directly, SOLIDWORKS would get confused and think that this second ISO is my type, and then it sees no files as a SOLIDWORKS part directly underneath that. It is the typeset again, and then all the sizes. So to fix this, you need to make sure that when you're extracting it, that you're extracting it directly into the Weldments folder, and you only have one ISO folder and then your file types. So I can very easily change this just by renaming the top level folder, going into it, and then cutting and pasting the standard back up here. Let's do it with some additional standards. I'll download the JIS standard. Again, I'll save it into my Weldments profile, or my Weldments folder, and that'll go ahead and download all of these. After that's downloaded, I can now extract it. Now, to make life easier, I can actually just tell it, don't extract it to JIS, I'll just backspace that at the end and extract it directly into my Weldments folder. If I now click extract, you'll see it goes to JIS and then all the types directly underneath it. It doesn't have a second JIS folder. I can now test that these are there by modifying this Weldment, and you can see under standards I've got my standard, but I now have my JIS standard that I can use. Thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact the Solid Solutions Ireland technical support team.